So the first news we're going to talk about is over at Gamespot. I believe this was Timur Hussein. He had an interview with Yves Guillemot, the head guy over at Ubisoft, and they talked about the Vivendi takeover and just Ubisoft in general. But he had this interesting couple of questions that he asked Yves, and I wanted to get to this and read it to you guys and talk about it a little bit. So he asks, this is the first year in a long time where we don't have an Assassin's Creed, though we do have the Ezio collection. That's me adding that in. Why was now the right time to take it out of rotation? And then Yves responds, what we have in development of the next Assassin's Creed was that we had an opportunity to take it to another level. So we said we'll take all the time it takes to make the experience fantastic. It was feasible because we have other games. There's a huge potential in this game to revolutionize the IP, so we said, let's make sure we change our model so we have more time and that we can bring back a better experience. And then there was a follow-up question. He says, when you say let's give it the time it needs, does that mean you haven't set a time for it to make its return? Most people are expecting it to be back next year. Is this the case, or will it just be back when it's ready? And then he states, it will be back when it's ready. That's when we feel that we have something there. And then the follow-up to that is, so you're saying not necessarily 2017? And Yves states, yeah, it will be ready when it's ready. So this began a lot of conjecture with the community talking about, well, is Assassin's Creed Empire even going to come out next year? Which that'll be 2 years straight that we don't have a new Assassin's Creed. We have the Ezio collection obviously this year. I just want to hear you guys' take. Obviously this is like speculation, but it's weird to me. Ubisoft is usually a company that like is very good at letting people like hint people to things, and for him saying that, he gets asked straight away, is it going to be 2017? He says it'll be ready when it's ready. What do you guys think? Is this just like Yves basically dodging like delays or stuff like that? He doesn't want to give a specific date in case plans change down the line?
I like it, especially since we've been in the season of delays, it seems like, where every other game gets delayed. I like that he just, straight up said, it's going to be ready when it's ready. I'm not going to overpromise or give you a date because I'm not really sure. We're just making a game. So I like it.
Yeah, definitely taking a page out of Blizzard's book with that one, and it's why put that out there when you can just say, it's at least a year off anyway. Like, why would he commit to a release window?
Exactly.
There's really no point. It's like a risk to do that. Uh-huh. So I personally think it will be out next year, but this way they have time, and when it's for sure they can announce that. And they're probably waiting for some bigger release. Could be PSX for all we know. Could be E3 to announce that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised.
True. The Nintendo Direct for the NX.
Seriously.
So, I'm trying to think what could replace Assassin's Creed as their fall game next year. The Wildlands is next spring, correct?
Yes, and For Honor. Those are both in the spring.
I guess Far Cry.
Yeah. They have 3 games in the spring. They have For Honor, they have Wildlands, and now they have Q1 South Park.
Oh, yeah.
Because it got delayed.
Yeah. So I'm thinking they're probably not going to do another Far Cry next year because we had Primal this year, and then 2 years ago we had 4, so it'd probably be like too close to annualization with that one. They're obviously trying to kind of get away from that. So I'm thinking maybe what if we got a new Splinter Cell next year?
That would be pretty cool. That would be awesome. There was
Killing Huber over here.
There was actually some, and this is all rumor too, but there was like a NeoGAF thread a while back of what's the name of the guy who played the lead character in Splinter Cell?
Sam Fisher.
Well, yeah, but the guy who played it, he was.
It's Starship Troopers guy. What's his name?
I can't remember it.
I forget. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. Either way, he was actually spotted at a Ubisoft like recording studio. And people were like, it was a weird rumor. It was a NeoGAF thread, so you don't really know how much proof is in that. But they were talking about like, does this mean a new Splinter Cell? So that is a possibility.
Those are usually pretty solid leads. Like the dude that leaked Watch Dogs a while ago, Mads Mikkelsen with hanging out with Kojima, and they're like matching up the hoodie that he's wearing and stuff. It's like those actually kind of turn out to be true most of the time.
Also,
I remember Franklin was at Rockstar. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
But nothing ever really came of that.
True. Exactly. I think the thing too with this is like they've done such a good job at fixing Siege, Rainbow Six, that this I'm excited for their shooters moving forward. Because like The Division was very lukewarm. I liked that game at launch, and then it progressively I kind of fell off on it. Siege obviously has gotten better the more it's been out. It's one of those games that like is super multiplayer focused. I think it's only multiplayer, right? Or is there a single player component to Siege?
You can play against like bots and stuff, challenges.
Right, yeah.
And that game is one of the few games that its multiplayer actually got better the longer it was out. A lot of times games don't have the audience to be around that long enough for them to fix it. But now it seems like that multiplayer audience is booming more than ever. So I'm kind of excited. Splinter Cell would be awesome. I agree with you, Huber, that I think it's like, why get people mad if you don't have to? Like, if you don't meet that date next year, just don't say anything. And then plus it makes the reveal at E3 or whenever they decide to reveal it that much grander. I think there's really nothing crazy about that. I think he's just, being safe.
Yeah, because they were already on schedule for every year with Assassin's Creed, and I think because of Unity, they pumped the brakes and had a good long look and said, yo, maybe there is franchise fatigue, maybe we should take time off. But the wheels were already so in motion that I think a lot of the groundwork on Empire was already done.
Yeah.
So unless they are fully scrapping that and like rebuilding it all, then I cannot see it coming out later than next year.
It amazes me how many teams Ubisoft has. If you go and look at like their company listing, they have like Ubisoft, name a city in the world, and they probably have one. It's crazy. So they have a lot of hands to work on that game. I think that's it for the Ubisoft story. The next story we're going to hop into here comes by way of Engadget, but the actual story, the initial story, was on USA Today. And John Fingus writes, Microsoft's Project Scorpio games will run in native 4K. In an interview with USA Today, the company's Shannon Loftus, who is their publishing general manager, stated that all first-party games arriving in the Scorpio timeframe will run in native 4K. You'll have at least a few games to show what your new TV can do. So I thought this was interesting. So basically, also in the interview, it states this is specifically for Microsoft published games. So, first parties and second parties. What do you guys think of this? Obviously, that she states she makes sure to stay in the Scorpio timeframe. So it's interesting to me that if there's games that are already scheduled to come out before the Scorpio, if they're going to implement that as well. There's some games that can come out in the summer before Scorpio releases. Cuphead, for one. Though I hope that game releases sometime soon. Hopefully next 4K.
Spring.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Those classic Disney graphics in 4K.
Yes.
What do you guys think about this? Them doubling down and saying all of our first-party games will run in 4K natively. What do you guys think about that?
I'm down, dude. I'm so excited because you mentioned before the show that they went to developers and developers said these are the specs that we need to get to 4K natively, and clearly that wasn't the case with Sony for the PS4 Pro. So I'm really glad to hear that this is a real 4K gaming machine. Like, this is the step. If I'm going to upgrade from my current Xbox One or PS4, I need it to be a full step forward and not a half step, and I feel like that's what this is, and it gets me really excited, man. I'm thinking about starting to save up and get my shit together to get a Scorpio. So
it's definitely a direct response to all the kind of confusion around PS4 Pro. Some games will run in 4K, some are almost there, and sort of this and that. And it's just real confusing to a lot of people. So this is almost like, I think, a direct response to all that, kind of saying like, no, our first party games at least are going to run natively in 4K, and that's it. So smart.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially with the push they've been doing with PC, it only makes sense to have your console match the PC in terms of performance. So, man, I'm still in shock by this. I'm like blown away that my mind can't even handle 4K yet. So.
Well, an interesting thing you said recently is you were talking about, like, you can buy a 4K TV now, but the price for a 4K TV will be way better next year. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be weird to see how all of this timing works out with Sony versus Microsoft of like, well, if you release a console where it's a little bit more viable for a consumer to get a 4K TV, does that benefit you? But then it's going to be a little bit more expensive. No matter what, no matter if it's $500 or what the price point is for the Scorpio, it will be more expensive than the Pro, just because a year from now, there will be a price drop on the Pro in some fashion, whether it's $50 something. But I think it's cool to let people know that you are all in on 4K as a company. Like Microsoft saying all of our first party published games are going to be 4K natively. That means like, hey, we're giving you a reason. We're not saying it might be. We're not saying it will be. We're saying it definitively will be in native 4K if it's a first-party game. The interesting thing too, Huber, about you remember the Xbox Play Anywhere? You've talked about it a little bit too in like Easy Allies podcast and stuff. I remember hearing after that announcement that they were like, well, they're kind of going back on it, right? They're going back on that announcement. I went and
Which
saw,
announcement? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Xbox Play Anywhere. So the the PC, Xbox One. There was a news story saying that they had gone back on them stating all of the stuff that they did about, every first party game will be on both platforms. They actually changed the wording to state that at release it won't be every game. Mm-hmm. And they also stated in their new wording that every game that was announced for Play Anywhere will be on Play Anywhere, but not future it doesn't state future titles as well. So it seems like they're kind of backtracking.
Sunset Overdrive and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, also Quantum Break's actually coming to PC and coming to Steam in the next couple of weeks. Yeah. So this has me thinking of like maybe it is still Play Anywhere, but they're like timed exclusives to the console itself. So it's kind of their workaround of like you'll have it on both PC and Xbox One, but you have a reason to buy the Xbox One because there's going to be like a 6-month wait, right, for you to be able to play it on PC. So that kind of gets around the whole situation of playing on PC or playing on Xbox One because like you are valid in your statement, Huber, of like why own an Xbox One if that's the case, right? If you have a PC. Mm-hmm. But if they make it so it's a timed exclusive, then you're like, well, do I want to wait 6 months to play all the really cool Microsoft exclusives? Then that kind of forces your hand a little bit more. So I thought it was interesting. It's weird that they went and changed the wording, and they kind of didn't state that to the open, but that's kind of how companies work. There's plenty of stuff that came out about PS4 Pro after the meeting that we didn't know about, the lack of the Blu-ray drive and that kind of stuff. So
that's such a misstep.
Exactly. We'll get into that in your topic. We have plenty to say. We talked about PS4 Pro ad nauseum, but there's always more to talk about with it because it's something.
Real quick, I want to know, what do we think the price is going to be for Scorpio? I'm saying $499.
Yeah. For Scorpio? Yeah. My head says $499. My heart says $449. I would like it to be a little bit cheaper. Because if you think about it, next year, you say the PS4 Pro gets a price drop of $50. That means that it's at $350, right? It's going to be hard for Microsoft to sell a console, even though it's that much more powerful, for any more than $100, right? More than the PS4 Pro.
They could do like the hard drive trick where, they say, oh, Scorpio's here, it's $500, but it comes with 2 terabytes. Because adding an extra terabyte to the hard drive doesn't really cost them very much at all.
Yeah.
Right? So that could be one way they kind of justify the higher price point too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Also, they don't want to eat a lot of money, but Microsoft has way more money than Sony ever has or ever will have. More than 10 times the amount. I was actually looking at their company worth, and Sony's sitting at, I think, $43 billion, and Microsoft's over $415 billion. So they have obviously Microsoft has way more money. There was a news story that Microsoft's working on a cure for cancer. I don't know if you guys saw that. They
better be with all that money.
They can eat it because the point of this is they want to get their hardware into as many hands because they make a lot more money on software than they do hardware. How long they would want to eat it is a question there, but I couldn't see it being more than $500. There's no way they wouldn't pull the PS3 blunder. There's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, people are just automatically going to compare it to PS3.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's 6.